In the soft embrace of a summer dawn in 1207, amid the rolling hills and ancient forests of Hungary, a princess entered the world. Elizabeth was born on the 7th day of July in the grand halls of Sárospatak Castle, where stone walls rose like gentle guardians against the vast Carpathian landscape. The kingdom of her father, King Andrew II, stretched across fertile plains dotted with rivers that wound like silver threads through meadows of wildflowers and groves of oak and beech. The air carried the faint scent of blooming linden trees, mingling with the earthy warmth of the soil after a light rain, as the castle's towers caught the first golden rays of the sun. Her mother, Queen Gertrude of Morania, cradled the newborn in chambers adorned with tapestries woven in hues of deep crimson and gold, depicting tales of distant ancestors who had ruled with quiet wisdom. The royal household buzzed softly with the rhythms of daily life, servants moving through corridors lit by flickering torches, the distant neigh of horses in the stables, and the murmur of courtiers in the great hall below. Elizabeth's arrival brought a serene joy to the court, her tiny form a symbol of continuity in a land where alliances were forged through blood and marriage. Yet her early days unfolded in the peaceful cocoon of family affection. As the seasons turned slowly, like pages in an ancient chronicle, Elizabeth grew amidst the splendor of her surroundings. The Hungarian countryside, with its misty mornings and sun-dappled afternoons, provided a tranquil backdrop for her infancy. Winters blanketed the hills in soft snow, turning the forests into hushed cathedrals where branches bowed under the weight of frost. And the family gathered by roaring hearths in rooms filled with the aroma of spiced mulled wine and fresh-baked bread. Spring arrived with a gentle thaw, rivers swelling to mirror the sky, and fields awakening in carpets of poppies and daisies that danced in the breeze. Elizabeth's father, a king known for his expansive realm that bridged east and west, often traveled, but in his presence the castle echoed with the steady cadence of governance. Messengers arriving on horseback, their cloaks dusted with the pollen of distant lands. Queen Gertrude, with her lineage tracing back to noble houses of Bavaria and beyond, instilled a quiet grace in the household. Her own piety reflected in the chapels where candles burned steadily before icons of saints. Elizabeth's ancestry wove a rich tapestry, connecting her to figures like her Aunt Hedwig, who would later be revered for her holiness, and even to the grand princes of Kiev and Rus, evoking a sense of timeless heritage that flowed through the bloodlines like a calm river. From her earliest moments, Elizabeth displayed a gentle disposition that seemed attuned to the subtle harmonies of the world around her. As a toddler, she wandered the castle gardens, where herbs grew in neat rows and fountains trickled with a soothing melody, her small hands reaching out to touch the velvety petals of roses or the rough bark of ancient trees. The forests encircling Sárospatak whispered secrets in the wind, home to deer that grazed peacefully and birds that sang lullabies at dusk. Family life revolved around the warmth of shared meals in the banquet hall, where tables groaned under platters of roasted meats, fruits from orchards heavy with pears and apples, and honey-sweetened pastries that melted like dreams on the tongue. Elizabeth's siblings, brothers like Bela, who would one day inherit the throne, and sisters destined for their own royal paths, played in the courtyards, their laughter blending with the calls of falcons soaring overhead. Yet even in these tender years, a subtle spirituality began to emerge in the young princess. She was drawn to the castle's private oratory, where the light filtered through stained glass in soft blues and ambers, casting ethereal patterns on the stone floors. There she would linger, her eyes wide with quiet wonder at the images of the Virgin Mary and the Christ child, her tiny voice perhaps murmuring instinctive prayers learned at her mother's knee. The court fostered an atmosphere of learning and devotion, with tutors arriving to share stories of scripture and history in unhurried sessions by the fireside. Elizabeth's early education unfolded gently, encompassing the arts of embroidery, where needles moved like whispers through fabric, and the melodies of lute music that floated through the halls on quiet evenings. The kingdom's position at the crossroads of cultures brought visitors from afar, merchants with silks from the east, pilgrims en route to sacred sites, and Franciscan influences that would later shape her path, though in these formative days they remained distant echoes. Her parents' marriage, a union of political alliance and personal bond, provided a model of steady companionship, with Queen Gertrude's charitable inclinations subtly influencing the household's approach to the less fortunate. Peasants from nearby villages, nestled in valleys where thatched roofs huddled against the wind, occasionally approached the castle gates for aid. And young Elizabeth observed these acts of kindness with a budding empathy that would define her later years. As Elizabeth approached her 4th year, the rhythms of royal life continued their serene flow. Summers brought festivals in the open fields, with banners fluttering softly and the scent of hay mingling with wild herbs. Autumns painted the forests in russets and golds, leaves drifting like gentle sighs to the ground, while the family prepared for the colder months with stores of grain and preserved fruits. It was in this nurturing environment that her betrothal was arranged, a common practice among nobility to secure peace and prosperity. Destined for Louis, the heir to the Landgrave of Thuringia, Elizabeth's path began to turn westward toward the misty lands of Germany. Yet, in these early Hungarian years, her spirit remained rooted in the warmth of home, a foundation of piety and familial love that would sustain her through the chapters yet to unfold. The stars over Sarospatak twinkled like distant promises each night, as the young princess drifted into sleep, the world around her a blanket of peaceful possibility. In the gentle hush of a Hungarian autumn, when leaves turned to shades of amber and gold across the vast plains, young Elizabeth's path began to weave toward distant horizons. At the tender age of 4, in the year 1211, she was betrothed to Louis IV, the eldest son of Hermann I, Landgrave of Thuringia. This union, arranged by her father King Andrew II, was a quiet thread in the tapestry of medieval alliances, binding the kingdoms of Hungary and the German principalities in hopes of lasting peace. The betrothal unfolded in the warm glow of Sarospatak Castle's halls, where tapestries fluttered softly in the breeze from open windows, and the scent of harvest fruits lingered in the air. Elizabeth, with her wide eyes and innocent curiosity, was unaware of the full weight of this promise, yet it marked the beginning of a serene transition from the familiar embrace of her homeland to the misty realms beyond the Carpathians. As winter's soft blanket of snow settled over the Hungarian landscape, preparations for her journey commenced. Escorted by a retinue of nobles and attendants, Elizabeth set forth on horseback and carriage along winding roads that meandered through dense forests and across murmuring rivers. The path led westward through valleys where fog rose like gentle spirits at dawn, and hills rolled endlessly under skies painted in soft grays and blues. The journey spanned weeks, each day unfolding like a slow dream, campfires flickering under starlit canopies at night, the rhythmic clip-clop of hooves on earthen paths by day, and the distant call of owls echoing through the trees. Her companions wrapped her in furs against the chill, sharing tales of the lands ahead, where ancient castles perched on crags and rivers like the Saale flowed with quiet persistence. Elizabeth's young heart absorbed these whispers, her spirit remaining calm amid the changing scenery, as if the world itself was cradling her toward her new home. Upon arrival in Thuringia, the Wartburg Castle emerged from the mists like a timeless sentinel atop a forested hill, its stone towers reaching toward the heavens amid the Thuringian forest's verdant expanse. This stronghold, built centuries earlier, overlooked valleys where meadows stretched like green quilts under the sun, and streams wandered lazily through groves of birch and pine. The air here carried a crisp freshness, scented with pine resin and the faint bloom of wildflowers in spring, a contrast to the warmer, spice-infused breezes of Hungary. Elizabeth was welcomed into the court with understated warmth, the echoing halls of the castle resonating with the soft footfalls of servants and the distant strains of lute music drifting from the great hall. Louis, then 11 years old, and his family provided a nurturing haven where daily life flowed in harmonious rhythms. Mornings began with the soft light filtering through narrow windows, casting patterns on flagstone floors, while evenings gathered the household around hearths where flames danced lazily, their glow illuminating faces in quiet conversation. In this serene environment, Elizabeth grew gracefully, her days blending education, play, and subtle spiritual nurturing. The castle's chapel, with its arched ceilings and candles burning steadily before altars of carved wood, became a place of quiet solace, where she knelt on cool stones, absorbing the gentle cadence of prayers. Tutors guided her in languages, embroidery, and the arts of courtly grace, their lessons unfolding in sunlit rooms overlooking the misty forests below. She roamed the castle grounds with Louis and his siblings, exploring paths where dew-kissed ferns unfurled and birds sang melodies from hidden branches. The nurturing atmosphere fostered her innate kindness, as she observed the Landgrave's household extending aid to villagers in the valleys, their thatched roofs huddled against the wind. Winters at Wartburg brought a peaceful introspection, with snow blanketing the landscape in silence, turning the world into a soft, white expanse where time seemed to pause. Springs awakened the earth with blooms of crocuses and violets, mirroring the blossoming of Elizabeth's spirit. The misty landscapes of Thuringia, often veiled in gentle fog that softened the outlines of distant hills, shaped her young years with a sense of wonder and tranquility. Echoing halls carried whispers of history, tales of past rulers etched into the very stones. Yet the court remained a place of steady warmth, free from the shadows of conflict. Elizabeth's bond with Louis deepened naturally over time, like roots intertwining in fertile soil, built on shared moments in the gardens where herbs grew in orderly beds, or during quiet rides through the woods where leaves rustled overhead. This period of her life, from betrothal to adolescence, unfolded like a calm river's course, guiding her toward maturity in an environment that honored both her royal heritage and her emerging gentle soul. The Wartburg's towers stood as silent witnesses, the surrounding forests a living embrace, as Elizabeth's grace continued to unfold in the unhurried passage of days and nights. In the gentle unfolding of spring in 1221, when the Thuringian valleys awakened with blooms of wild orchids and the soft hum of bees among the meadows, Elizabeth reached her 14th year and stepped into the quiet joy of marriage. The ceremony took place within the ancient walls of Wartburg Castle, where sunlight filtered through narrow arched windows, casting a warm golden haze over the chapel's stone floors. Elizabeth, adorned in a simple gown of fine linen, embroidered with threads of silver that caught the light like distant stars, joined hands with Louis IV, now 21, and Landgrave of Thuringia, following his father's passing. The air carried the faint scent of incense from the altar, mingling with the fresh earthiness wafting in from the open countryside beyond. Vows were exchanged in the serene presence of family and courtiers, the echoes of the priest's steady voice blending with the distant song of larks rising from the forests below. This union, long promised since their childhood betrothal, blossomed naturally into a bond of deep harmony, where mutual respect and affection flowed like a calm river through their shared days. Life at Wartburg settled into a rhythm of peaceful companionship, the castle's sturdy towers standing sentinel over verdant valleys that stretched like emerald tapestries under ever-changing skies. Mornings began with the soft light of dawn creeping over the hills, illuminating the great hall where Elizabeth and Louis broke their fast together, sharing platters of bread, cheese, and fruits from the castle orchards, apples still dewy from the night. Louis, with his steady demeanor shaped by the responsibilities of rule, found in Elizabeth a gentle partner whose quiet wisdom complemented his own. He supported her growing inclinations toward charity, allowing her to distribute alms from the household stores to villagers who climbed the winding paths to the castle gates. In turn, she offered him unwavering loyalty, her presence a soothing anchor amid the subtle demands of governing a land dotted with quaint hamlets and ancient woodlands. Their evenings often unfolded in the privacy of their chambers, where tapestries depicting serene landscapes hung on the walls, and a hearth fire crackled lazily, its flames dancing in soft shadows. Here they would linger, the world outside hushed under blankets of mist that rolled in from the rivers, fostering an atmosphere of intimate tranquility. As the seasons cycled gently, their family grew, each new life adding layers of warmth to their domestic bliss. In 1222, their first child, Hermann, arrived amid the crisp air of autumn, his cries echoing softly through the castle corridors like a new melody in an old song. Elizabeth cradled him in rooms overlooking the valleys, where leaves turned to russet and gold, drifting lazily to the ground below. 2 years later, in 1224, Sophia was born under summer skies heavy with the scent of blooming linden trees, her arrival bringing a fresh sense of wonder to the household. Servants moved quietly through the halls, tending to the needs of the young family with unhurried care, while wet nurses and attendants ensured the children's days were filled with the gentle routines of play and rest. Finally, in 1227, Gertrude entered the world in the quiet hush of early spring, as tender shoots pushed through the soil in the castle gardens. Elizabeth's motherhood unfolded with a natural grace, her hands soft as she held her little ones, singing lullabies that floated on the evening breeze. Louis watched with quiet pride, their shared parenthood weaving deeper threads of connection, like roots intertwining in fertile earth. The castle home became a haven of serene routines, where daily life mirrored the peaceful landscapes that surrounded it. Walks along the battlements offered views of misty mornings blanketing the valleys, the Saale River winding like a silver river far below. Festivals in the courtyard brought subtle celebrations, musicians playing lutes with mellow tones, tables laden with harvests from the fields, and the soft laughter of children blending with the rustle of leaves. Elizabeth's spiritual leanings found gentle expression here, in private prayers by candlelight or quiet visits to the chapel, where the stone absorbed her whispered devotions like an old friend. Louis, ever supportive, joined her in these moments when he could, their faith a steady undercurrent rather than a forceful wave. Challenges arose softly, as they do in any life, matters of court or distant news from Hungary, but they navigated them together, their bond a calm harbor amid any subtle storms. In this chapter of joyful marriage, Wartburg stood as a timeless refuge, its walls enclosing a world of mutual love, where time moved like a slow dream, nurturing the family within its embrace. In the quiet hush of 1223, as autumn leaves drifted lazily across the Thuringian valleys, painting the earth in soft hues of russet and amber, a gentle stirring began within Elizabeth's heart. Franciscan friars, followers of the humble Saint Francis of Assisi, arrived in the lands of Germany, their simple brown habits blending with the muted tones of the forests that surrounded Wartburg Castle. These wanderers, who lived in serene poverty and preached a message of harmony with all creation, found their way to the court through distant paths lined with ancient oaks and murmuring streams. Their presence was like a soft breeze carrying whispers from distant Italy, where Francis had gathered his brothers in groves of olive trees under starlit skies. Elizabeth, now a young wife and mother in the stone embrace of the castle, encountered their teachings during quiet gatherings in the chapel, where candlelight flickered steadily against walls adorned with faded tapestries. The friar's stories of simplicity and service flowed like a calm river, awakening in her a deeper awareness of the world beyond the battlements, the villagers in the misty valleys below, their thatched homes huddled against the chill, and the wanderers who sought shelter from the gathering winds. This awakening unfolded gradually, like dawn creeping over the hills, softening the edges of her daily life with a newfound purpose. Elizabeth began to venture beyond the castle gates, her footsteps light on the winding paths that led to the hamlets nestled in the folds of the landscape. The air carried the earthy scent of damp soil and wood smoke from distant chimneys, mingling with the faint aroma of herbs from her own gardens. With gentle hands, she distributed alms from the household stores. Loaves of bread baked in the castle ovens, woolen cloaks woven on looms that hummed rhythmically in the lower halls, and coins that clinked softly in her pouch. These acts were unhurried, performed in the quiet moments between her duties as Landgravine, when the sun hung low and cast long shadows across the meadows. She visited the needy in their modest dwellings, where rushes covered the floors and hearths glowed with embers that warmed the dim interiors. Her touch was tender as she tended to the ailing, wrapping bandages around weary limbs or offering bowls of nourishing broth simmered over slow fires. Inspired by the Franciscan way, she saw in each person a reflection of the divine simplicity that Francis had embraced, living without excess, finding joy in the bare essentials like the flight of birds or the rustle of leaves underfoot. As the seasons turned, Elizabeth's devotion deepened, weaving a serene tapestry of compassion that extended through the rhythms of court life. Winters brought a peaceful blanket of snow over the Thuringian forest, turning the world into a hushed expanse where footprints trailed like faint memories across the white fields. In these colder months, she organized provisions for the poor, drawing from granaries filled with golden wheat harvested under summer suns, ensuring that hearths in distant villages remained lit against the frost. Louis, her steadfast husband, observed her growing commitment with quiet approval. Their evenings together in the great hall, illuminated by the soft glow of oil lamps, where discussions of the day's kindnesses blended with the crackle of logs in the fireplace. The Franciscan influence lingered like a gentle echo, reminding her of Francis's love for all creatures. The wolves tamed in Italian hills, the birds preached to in open glades. Elizabeth mirrored this in subtle ways, sharing scraps with animals that roamed the castle grounds, or pausing to admire the intricate patterns of frost on window panes, as if each detail whispered of a greater harmony. Her actions rippled outward, touching lives in the quiet villages where rivers flowed with a steady murmur and church bells tolled softly at dusk. She established small refuges for travelers, simple shelters built from local stone and timber, where weary souls could rest under roofs that shielded them from rain pattering like soft lullabies. In spring, as wildflowers bloomed in carpets of violet and gold along the riverbanks, she gathered herbs for poultices, her fingers brushing against dew-kissed leaves in the early light. These endeavors were never rushed, allowing time for contemplation amid the natural beauty that enveloped Wartburg, the misty mornings that veiled the valleys, the gentle sway of branches in the breeze, and the distant call of deer echoing through the woods. Elizabeth's charity became a living expression of the Franciscan spirit, not as a grand declaration, but as a serene thread woven into the fabric of her existence, inviting a sense of peace to those she encountered. Through it all, her family life remained a warm anchor, with her children playing in sun-dappled courtyards, their laughter a soft counterpoint to her quiet missions of mercy. This period of awakening marked a tranquil evolution, where Elizabeth's inner light grew steadily, illuminating paths of kindness in a world of subtle shadows. The landscapes of Thuringia, with their rolling hills and ancient groves, seemed to cradle her journey,
each sunset a gentle reminder of the day's graces. As years passed in unhurried succession, her devotion continued to flow, like a stream finding its way through fertile earth, nurturing seeds of compassion that would endure beyond her time. In 1226, as heavy rains descended upon the Thuringian lands like a persistent veil, the rivers swelled beyond their banks, flooding the fertile valleys and turning meadows into vast, shimmering pools under overcast skies. The floods came gently at first, with waters rising inch by inch, but soon they claimed crops that had promised abundance, leaving fields sodden and barren. In their wake, famine crept in on silent feet, the earth withholding its gifts as granaries stood half empty and villagers gazed at empty hearths. A plague followed, whispering through the hamlets like mist rolling down from the hills, touching lives with quiet sorrow. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke from dwindling fires, while distant church bells tolled softly, marking the passage of days blurred by hardship. Württemberg Castle, perched high above the turmoil, remained a steadfast sentinel, its stone walls enclosing chambers where oil lamps flickered steadily against the gloom. Louis, the Landgrave, had departed for distant councils in Italy, called to the imperial diet at Cremona by Emperor Frederick II, his journey winding through mountain passes veiled in fog and along roads softened by relentless downpours. In his absence, the weight of governance settled upon Elizabeth's young shoulders, her presence a calm anchor amid the gathering shadows. With unhurried resolve, Elizabeth turned her gaze to the needs of the land, her days unfolding in a serene rhythm of care within the castle's echoing halls. She opened the granaries, those vast stores of wheat and barley gathered from sunnier seasons, distributing portions to the lines of villagers who ascended the winding paths to the gates. Their footsteps were soft on the muddied trails, cloaks drawn close against the chill, as she ensured each family received enough to sustain them through the lean times. Loaves baked in the castle ovens, their crusts warm and fragrant, and measures of grain ground into flour under the steady turn of millstones. The castle kitchens hummed with quiet activity, pots simmering over low flames to produce nourishing soups from root vegetables salvaged from unaffected plots, the steam rising like gentle spirits into the cool air. Elizabeth moved among her people with tender grace, her hands extending aid without fanfare, wrapping shawls around shivering forms or offering bowls to those weakened by illness. The plague's touch was subtle yet pervasive, homes falling quiet as fevers lingered. But she established makeshift infirmaries in outbuildings near the castle, where beds of straw were laid out under thatched roofs, and herbal infusions steeped in clay pots to ease discomfort. Monks and healers from nearby monasteries lent their knowledge, their robes brushing the floors as they tended the afflicted, the rooms lit by the soft glow of candles that burned through the night. As weeks blended into months, the landscape outside Wartburg transformed under the weight of adversity. Forests dripping with rain and valleys echoing with the distant low of cattle thinned by scarcity. Yet Elizabeth's spirit remained a soft light, guiding her actions with steady compassion. She sold portions of her own jewels, those glittering remnants of royal dowry, with gems that caught the dim light like captured stars, to purchase more provisions from distant markets where caravans arrived sporadically along sodden trade routes.
Coins exchanged hands quietly, funding shipments of salt fish and dried fruits that supplemented the local yields. Her children, still small and wrapped in the warmth of nursery chambers, played under the watchful eyes of attendants, their laughter a faint melody against the backdrop of concern, while Elizabeth balanced her maternal duties with the broader call of stewardship. Louis's letters arrived intermittently, carried by messengers on weary horses, their words offering distant encouragement. But in his stead, she consulted with advisors in the great hall, where tapestries hung still and hearths crackled with logs gathered from the wooded slopes. Decisions flowed like a tranquil stream, allocating resources to the most vulnerable, ensuring orphanages in Eisenach received extra bundles of wool for blankets, and sending carts laden with supplies to remote villages nestled in the folds of the hills. Through it all, the natural world mirrored the quiet endurance of the people, with occasional breaks in the clouds, allowing shafts of sunlight to pierce the mist, gilding the rooftops and sparking hope like embers in ash. Elizabeth's faith, woven subtly into her routines, found expression in early morning visits to the castle chapel, where the stone absorbed her silent prayers like an old companion, the altar candles flickering in harmony with the dawn. Her steadfastness became a beacon, not through grand gestures, but through the serene persistence of daily mercy, as if each act were a thread mending the fabric of a weary land. The famine and plague, though they lingered like long shadows, began to recede as spring's tentative warmth approached, buds unfurling on branches and rivers retreating to their courses. In these shadowed times, Elizabeth's role as guardian of Thuringia unfolded like a dreamlike chapter, her gentle leadership a reminder of resilience amid the hush of hardship, carrying the realm through to calmer horizons. In the gentle hush of September 1227, as golden leaves began to drift from the branches of the Thuringian forests, casting a soft carpet over the winding paths below Wartburg Castle, Louis IV set forth on his journey. He had pledged himself to the Sixth Crusade, called by Emperor Frederick II, his heart stirred by a quiet sense of duty to distant lands across the seas. The castle gates opened under a sky heavy with autumn clouds, and Louis rode out with his retinue, horses' hooves clipping steadily on the stone bridge that spanned the misty valleys. Elizabeth stood at a high window, her children clustered nearby in the warmth of the great hall, where tapestries stirred faintly in the draught. The air carried the earthy scent of impending rain, mingling with the smoke from village chimneys far below, as the procession faded into the haze of the horizon. Louis's absence settled over the castle like a soft veil, the days lengthening into quiet routines of waiting, with letters arriving sporadically on weary messenger steeds, bearing news of safe passages through alpine meadows and along coastal roads. But in the port town of Otranto, on the sun-warmed shores of southern Italy, where waves lapped rhythmically against ancient docks and gulls wheeled overhead in lazy circles, a fever took hold of Louis. The illness came subtly, like twilight stealing the day's light, and despite the care of physicians in shaded inns where olive branches rustled outside, he slipped away peacefully on the 11th day of September. Word of his passing traveled northward like a slow-moving river,
carried by couriers through mountain passes blanketed in early fog, and across plains where harvest moons rose full and luminous. When the news reached Wartburg in the deepening chill of October, it enveloped Elizabeth in a serene sorrow, her young widowhood unfolding at the age of 20. The castle, once a haven of shared joys, now echoed with the soft patter of rain on slate roofs, its halls lit by the steady glow of candles that flickered like distant stars. Elizabeth cradled her 3 children, Herman, Sophia, and little Gertrude, in chambers where woolen blankets draped over wooden cradles. Their small forms a gentle reminder of the life she and Louis had woven together. Grief visited her in quiet waves, not as a storm, but as a mist that softened the edges of her world, allowing moments of reflection by the hearth, where embers glowed with subdued warmth. As winter's first snows dusted the Thuringian hills, turning the landscape into a tranquil expanse of white where bare trees stood like silent sentinels, tensions stirred within the family. Louis's brothers, Henry Raspe and Conrad, guardians of the realm in his stead, began to question Elizabeth's role as regent for her infant son Herman, the heir to the Landgraviate. Whispers of discord floated through the castle corridors, centered on her generous ways with the poor, which some saw as a gentle stream diverting resources from the treasury. The air grew cooler still, with frost etching delicate patterns on window panes, as conflicts over her dowry and the governance of Thuringia deepened like shadows lengthening at dusk. Elizabeth navigated these changing winds with unhurried resolve, her spirit anchored in the serene faith that had guided her thus far. One crisp evening, under a sky strewn with stars like scattered pearls, she was compelled to leave Wartburg, escorted from its sturdy walls amid the hush of falling snow. The journey downward wound through forested paths where branches bowed under the weight of winter, the crunch of footsteps muffled in the quiet night. With her children bundled in furs against the chill, Elizabeth found temporary refuge in the nearby town of Eisenach. Its timber-framed houses huddled along cobbled streets where lanterns glowed softly from windows. The Saal River flowed nearby, its waters murmuring a steady lullaby under ice-fringed banks, offering a sense of continuity amid displacement. Later, they moved to the care of her uncle, Bishop Eckbert of Bamberg, in a distant abbey where stone cloisters enclosed peaceful gardens dusted with snow. Here, in rooms warmed by modest fires, Elizabeth tended to her little ones, reading from leather-bound books by candlelight, their pages whispering tales of ancient saints. The exile, though marked by loss, unfolded like a dreamlike interlude, allowing time for inner quietude amid the serene cycle of days. Mornings greeted by the pale light filtering through arched windows, evenings closing with the toll of distant bells. Through it all, her resolve remained a gentle current, carrying her forward on the changing tides of fortune, toward horizons yet unseen. In the serene unfolding of spring in 1228, as soft rains nourished the Thuringian earth and wildflowers began to dot the meadows with hints of color, Elizabeth embraced a new chapter of quiet devotion. Having navigated the gentle sorrows of widowhood and exile, she found solace in the Franciscan way that had long whispered to her spirit. On Good Friday, in the dim light of a modest chapel in Eisenach, where candles burned steadily against the stone walls, and the air carried the faint scent of incense mingled with fresh earth from outside. She took her solemn vows. Joining the Third Order of St. Francis, a path for lay people seeking simplicity amid everyday life, she pledged herself to poverty, chastity, and obedience.
This commitment was not a sudden leap, but a natural extension of her earlier awakenings, like a river finding its deeper course after meandering through valleys. Clad now in simple gray robes of coarse wool, cinched at the waist with a cord, she released the remnants of her royal attire, her footsteps light and unburdened on the paths that led her forward. With the return of her dowry secured through the quiet interventions of her family and ecclesiastical friends, Elizabeth turned her gaze toward Marburg, a tranquil town nestled in the rolling hills of Hesse, where the Lahn River flowed with a steady murmur under arched bridges. The castle there, perched on a gentle rise amid forests that rustled with the breeze, became her new haven, its stone towers softened by climbing ivy and the mist that often veiled the mornings. Using her inheritance wisely, she established a hospital at the foot of the hill, a humble structure built from local timber and stone, its thatched roof sheltering rows of simple beds lined with straw mattresses. The air within carried the herbal scents of lavender and chamomile, steeped in pots over low fires to soothe the ailing, while narrow windows allowed shafts of sunlight to filter in, casting warm patterns on the earthen floors. This sanctuary was dedicated to Saint Francis, embodying his love for the least among us, and it welcomed the sick and poor from surrounding villages, wayfarers with weary limbs, families touched by lingering fevers, and orphans seeking a gentle hand. Elizabeth's days in Marburg settled into a rhythm of serene service, each one unfolding like the slow turn of a water wheel by the river's edge. Mornings began with the soft toll of church bells echoing through the mist-shrouded valleys, calling her to prayer in a nearby Franciscan friary, where the friars' chants rose like a harmonious lullaby. Afterward, she would make her way to the hospital, her gray robes brushing against dew-kissed grasses along the path, the world awakening around her with the chirping of birds and the distant low of cattle in the fields. There she moved among the patients with unhurried grace, her hands tender as she washed fevered brows with cool cloths dipped in spring water, or prepared nourishing broths from vegetables gathered in the castle gardens. Carrots and leeks simmered slowly until their flavors blended into comforting warmth. She bandaged wounds with strips of clean linen, her touch light and reassuring, and distributed bread baked in communal ovens, its crust still warm from the embers. The poor who gathered at the gates found in her a quiet provider, receiving cloaks mended from scraps or bowls of porridge thickened with milk from the local farms. Afternoons often blended into evenings in this haven of care, the sun dipping low to paint the hills in soft golds and purples, while Elizabeth continued her labors. She spun wool by the fireside, her spindle turning rhythmically to create threads for blankets that would ward off the night's chill. Or she knelt to scrub the floors, the repetitive motion a meditative flow amid the hushed murmurs of those she served. Her children, now under the guardianship of trusted kin, visited in peaceful interludes, their young voices adding a layer of familial warmth to the hospital's atmosphere, like sunlight breaking through clouds.
Through it all, Elizabeth embodied a life of humble dedication. Her simple robes, a symbol of her inner freedom, unencumbered by the trappings of her former station. The Franciscan spirit infused her actions, drawing from Francis's own harmony with creation, the way he had preached to birds in sun-dappled groves or embraced lepers in shadowed lanes.
In Marburg, she found echoes of that in the natural beauty surrounding her, the river's gentle babble lulling the weary to rest, the forests providing herbs for healing poultices, and the changing seasons mirroring the cycles of life and renewal. This era of vows and service became a tapestry of tranquil purpose, where each act of kindness rippled outward like pebbles dropped into still waters. Nights fell softly over Marburg, the hospital quiet save for the even breathing of sleepers and the occasional crackle of a dying fire, allowing Elizabeth moments of reflection under starlit skies.
Her path, though marked by sacrifice, flowed with an inner peace that sustained her, a quiet testament to living in harmony with the world's deeper rhythms. In the soft veil of autumn in 1231, as leaves turned to muted golds and drifted lazily across the Hessian hills, Elizabeth's health began to fade like the waning light of day. At the tender age of 24, her body, worn from years of unceasing service in the hospital she had founded in Marburg, succumbed to a gentle illness born of exhaustion and self-denial. The Lahn River continued its steady murmur below the town, winding through valleys where mist rose each morning like a quiet breath, enveloping the stone buildings in a serene haze. Elizabeth rested in a simple cell within the Franciscan friary, her gray robes draped over a modest bed of straw, the air scented with faint herbs from the nearby gardens and the subtle warmth of beeswax candles flickering in the dim light. Her days unfolded in hushed rhythms, mornings spent in quiet prayer as sunlight filtered through narrow windows, casting elongated shadows on the flagstone floors, and afternoons where she received visitors with a steady gaze, her voice a soft whisper, sharing words of comfort. The illness progressed without haste, a subtle ebbing of strength that allowed her to reflect on the tapestry of her life. The joys of marriage in Wartburg's echoing halls, the trials of famine and widowhood amid snowy paths, and the fulfillment found in tending the poor with hands that had once held royal scepters. Friars and companions moved about her with gentle care, their footsteps light on the earthen paths, ensuring her final moments were cradled in peace. As November deepened, with frost etching delicate patterns on the window panes and the distant toll of church bells marking the hours like a lullaby, Elizabeth welcomed her end on the 17th day, slipping away serenely in the embrace of those who had shared her path of mercy.
In the quiet aftermath, as winter's first snows blanketed Marburg's rooftops and turned the landscape into a tranquil expanse of white, miracles began to unfold at her tomb. Pilgrims gathered slowly, drawn by whispers carried on the chill winds, tales of healings that emerged like spring buds after a long frost. The blind regained sight in the soft glow of the chapel where her body lay, their eyes opening to the muted colors of stained glass illuminated by dawn. The lame walked again, their steps tentative at first on the cold stone floors, echoing faintly through the arched corridors. Fevers lifted from the afflicted as if dispersed by a gentle breeze, and wounds mended under the touch of faith.
the air heavy with the scent of incense and fresh earth from opened graves. These wonders spread outward, rippling through villages nestled in the folds of the hills, where lanterns glowed warmly in windows against the night. Reports reached distant courts and monasteries, chronicled in leather-bound volumes by scribes working by candlelight, their quills scratching steadily across parchment. The miracles, serene in their simplicity, affirmed the quiet holiness that had defined her earthly days, drawing souls to contemplate the subtle ways divine grace weaves through human frailty. By 1235, under skies cleared by spring rains that nourished the blooming meadows around Perugia, Pope Gregory IX proclaimed her canonization on the 27th of May. The ceremony unfolded in a basilica where sunlight streamed through high arches, casting a warm halo over assembled faithful, their murmurs blending with the distant coo of doves. Elizabeth was elevated to sainthood swiftly, her life a beacon of charity that resonated across Europe, inspiring hospitals and orders dedicated to the needy. Churches rose in her honor, their spires reaching toward heavens veiled in soft clouds. And her feast day settled into the calendar on November 17th, a time when autumn's hush invites remembrance. Her legacy endures like a gentle stream flowing through the ages, touching lives in quiet corners of the world. As patroness of hospitals, widows, and the poor, she whispers of kindness in bustling cities and remote villages alike, where acts of mercy mirror her own. Bread shared at soup kitchens under rainy skies, hands extended to the homeless in the glow of street lamps, or volunteers tending the ill in rooms lit by soft electric lights. In art and story, she appears amid roses transformed by miracle, symbols of hidden grace blooming in unexpected places. Her spirit invites a timeless reflection on how love, offered without fanfare, illuminates paths through shadowed times, fostering harmony in a world of subtle changes. Even now, in the hush of evening, her example lingers, a serene reminder that true richness lies in open hearts and helping hands, echoing softly through the corridors of history.